Thank you all for being here today. When you're nearing the end of the circle of life, people often talk about quality versus quantity. The fact of the matter is, my grandmother had both. She lived a long and full life, and we are all here to celebrate her and to continue her legacy. She lives on in the stories we tell and in our love for her that we will always share. Long live Theodora Bella Rose Rosillo Guastaferro. She was an incredible daughter, sister, wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and my best friend. She was my family's North Star, and she was the one that started it all. My grandma was born amidst the Great Depression in Brooklyn, New York, to Italian immigrants. She was the biggest Frank Sinatra fan I knew, and she loved to tell you that not only did she get his autograph twice, but he invited her and a group of girls backstage at the Paramount Theater. He was her Frankie boy, and I was her Danny boy. And when I would jokingly ask her, "Grandma, who do you love more, Frankie boy or Danny boy?" she would reply, "Oh, it's hard to decide." After high school, she followed her sister's footsteps and became a secretary. Not just any secretary, however. She would enthusiastically always tell you she was the executive secretary for the Bigelow Sanford Carpet Company on Madison Avenue. My grandma taught us what it means to love and to be loved. She married my grandfather, Erasmo, the one and only great love of her life, and I know they're reunited once again. After living in Brooklyn for nearly 30 years, my grandma got fed up with the cold weather, or as she put it, one winter day, walking home from the subway station, she put her pocketbook against her chest and shouted, "I never want to be cold again." As history would have it, soon thereafter, she met my grandfather, with whom she would start a life and family with in sunny Minnesota. In 2013, I filmed Grandma telling the story of how she met my grandfather. She described their first blind date that a mutual friend, Ann, set up for them on May 9, 1961, even including the detail of what he was wearing: a raincoat, a hat, and holding a magazine called Vision. My grandfather was on vacation from Venezuela, visiting his family in New York. He called her the very next day and they met again. Only this time, on just their second date, my grandfather proposed, to which my grandmother respectfully said, "For heaven's sake, no, I barely know you." But they went on to see each other every day that week, and when he went back to Venezuela, their romance continued, through letters back and forth between Brooklyn and Caracas. She recalled the language barrier of their relationship. My grandfather would write her letters in Italian. My grandma would run over to her friend Ann's house to translate the letters into English. She would then go home that night and write her response in English, and the next day have her friend dictate the letter in Italian for her to write and send back. We still have all of these letters. For instance, my grandma wrote for him from work one day on June 7th, 1961. And the letter reads, "My dear Ray, non soffro più. I don't suffer anymore. Here I am once again, but only in a short note. This is the company where I work as a secretary. Surprise me and write to this address sometime. I always think of you, yours, Theodora." A few months later, my grandma went to visit him and his family in Venezuela. They were profoundly in love, and 9 months after their initial date, they got married on February 3rd, 1962. For their honeymoon, they went on to the Yankee Clipper Hotel in Florida, and she loved to share with you that they ran into Joe DiMaggio waiting for Marilyn Monroe at the breakfast table. After having their first daughter and living in New York a couple of years, they moved permanently to Venezuela, where they went on to build a beautiful life and family of 3 daughters. My grandma had a miscarriage of a baby boy and showed her incredible strength and strong faith as she continued to raise her family. My grandfather had a furniture factory called Famida, and after he passed away of lung cancer in 2002, just 4 months after my grandma lost her dad, she once again showed her strength and devotion to faith as she grieved the loss of the 2 most important men in her life. My grandma continued her nearly 50-year chapter in Venezuela until 2011, when she moved in with my mom, brother, and me here in South Florida. She brought with her our 2 German shepherds, and I spent every moment I could with my grandma. We laughed, we bickered, we sang, and we danced together. My grandma was one of a kind. She was the strongest woman I knew. I remember one day we were going to walk the dogs. My grandma got tired of waiting for me. While I was in the bathroom, she put on the leash on her 80-pound German Shepherd Marcela and proceeded to walk her herself. She made it just a few steps out the door until Marcela caught a glimpse of another dog across the street and pulled, tumbling my grandma across the yard. When I walked outside, she was on the ground, but still firmly holding Marcela. But that was my grandma, strong, resilient, and faithful. Every day after school, we would watch Dr. Phil and Judge Judy together, followed by graham crackers and coffee with the 5 o'clock news. After I went to baseball practice, we would watch Nancy Grace and Forensic Files until it was much past my bedtime. She loved crime dramas. Over the summers, we would stay up all night together, binge watching shows like Lost, Prison Break, and Monk. I remember when I was in high school, there were 3 weeks in a row she had these mini strokes while we were watching Dr. Phil and Judge Judy. I became a pro at dialing 911. On our way back from the hospital, we would always stop and get her an ice cream cone, and I began to joke with her and say, "Grandma, if you want an ice cream, we can just go. We don't have to go to the hospital first." As my grandma's dementia progressed and her memory worsened, we would listen to all her favorite artists: Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Ella Fitzgerald, Tony Bennett, Louis Armstrong, Andrea Bocelli, Barbra Streisand, and many more. And while she was the biggest Frank Sinatra fan, her favorite song of all time was "Smile" by Nat King Cole. She would sometimes test her patience, asking things several times over and over again. But I loved the way she would scratch and caress your arm as she asked, once again, "What day is it tomorrow?" And my grandma never lost her sense of humor. She was the happiest person I knew. She was quick-witted, snarky, and always had a comeback ready for whatever you told her. For example, one day my Aunt Joanne grew frustrated at her and said, "Ma, you don't remember shit." To which my grandma quickly replied, "Well, why would I want to remember that?" We spent so much time together growing up. When my mom and aunt were working, she would sometimes take care of her 4 grandchildren alone. One day when we were young and being particularly rowdy, fighting over who knows what, my grandma, in charge of taking care of us, got aggravated and left. Once the 4 of us realized grandma was gone, we all stopped fighting and came together with a new mission: find grandma. It turned out grandma was in the parking lot, walking off whatever aggravation we had caused. But that story is symbolic of what our grandma meant to all of us. Our lives revolved around her, and whenever she wasn't there, time stopped. Of course, that wasn't the only time I misbehaved when I was young. My grandma and I were inseparable, and I would annoy her to pieces. She would yell Italian phrases at me. "Ah, fanalola, go to hell. Don't be a scorciamende, a pain in the ass." And whenever she wanted me out of her room, "Bratine, get out, get out." And sometimes she would yell some things that I still don't know what they mean. "Maneja soda da frada da fila." And of course, she also had a repertoire of English phrases for when I would get her aggravated. "Danny, stop being a pill and a half. Go take a walk and don't come back." And in an English accent, she would yell at me in Spanish too. Déjame en paz." As she got older and her body aged, like everyone else, she experienced joint pain. However, she had little sayings that got hurt. When she was exerting force, she would say, "Oh papa, oh mama, and oh umba." Every time she got up, she said, "Oh my stupid knee." And even when her hands and wrists ached, her great sense of humor never dwindled. She would always say, "I'm gonna find that arthritis guy and I'm gonna shoot him." When COVID began and I moved back to Florida to finish college, I got to spend my every moment with grandma. Every morning she would wake up and ask, is there any coffee in the house? What are we gonna do today? Who can we go see? And eventually she started singing, oh mama, pizza fritta bacala. Oh mama, pizza fritta bacala. Then I would tease her and say, that's right, Grandma, you're gonna have bacala for breakfast. She always objected, no, I'll have coffee instead. During the day, we would watch her favorite films on Turner Classic Movies. In the evenings, we would go on walks listening to her favorite music, looking at all the Christmas lights, and at her favorite thing in the whole wide world, the beautiful blue sky. There are endless things that will always remind me of her. The way she read the newspaper front to back every morning, and then separated the comic section specifically to take around the house with her the rest of the day. Not to mention her Reader's Digest collection that she read cover to cover for decades. The way she would complete word search puzzles in lightning speed, and the little notes I would leave for her throughout the book saying, I love Grandma, signed Danny Boy. The way she ordered iced tea at a restaurant, and when the waiter asked, sweetened or unsweetened, she always replied, oh, just a little bit of sugar. The way she called me, hey, why-yo, and the way she would crack up watching Impractical Jokers, chuckling and saying, oh, what idiots. The way she described her long curls from when she was a little girl with the same hand motions every time. I had long curls, she would say, followed by the fact that in the summer it was too hot and she would have to use braids. The way every birthday that came around, she reminded us all, your age is only a number. You're as old as you feel and as old as you want to be. The way every time I came home from a baseball game, she asked, Danny, did you win? And whenever I told her I had lost that day, she replied, well, you can't win them all. The way we would be stuck in traffic, standstill traffic, and her positive attitude would still show as she said, ooh, look at all those pretty red lights. The way she loved to sing all day, every day, and how sometimes she would sing a new song I had never heard before, and I would look it up and amazingly, it existed. It blew me away how she suddenly recalled the lyrics to a song from decades ago. And even better were the times when she suddenly sang a new song I hadn't heard her sing before, and I would look it up and it turned out she completely made up all the words to fit the melody. The way every time I put on Netflix and the home screen came on with a list of profiles, she would read the TV asking, who is watching? And respond, Dan the man and Theo the girl. And the way in every suspenseful scene in the movie, she would shout, oh, that dirty dog. The way when I tucked her into bed every night, I would say, good night, Grandma, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, sweet dreams, buonanotte tutti quanti. And she would say, buonanotte. And when I would say, I love you, Grandma, she would always say back, I love you too, cuando se porta bien. I love you too, when you behave. In July of 2000, my grandma underwent a life-saving and risky open heart surgery for an aortic aneurysm. The Lord blessed us with another 22 great years with her in our lives, and we still beg for another day. Even those that never had the blessing of meeting Grandma knew and loved her through the stories that we all share. The sorrow we feel today is a testament to how much she was loved, how much she was adored, and how much happiness she resonated. The same bravery and faith she showed in leaving Brooklyn to start a life in Venezuela, she showed once again in leaving this earth to be carried by angels into eternity. When I turned 18, I got my grandma's birthday tattooed on my leg, knowing that wherever I go and whatever I do, if I place my right foot forward, Grandma will be there with me every step of the way. So Grandma, we're going to miss you. We will always remember and love you. Your smile, your laughter, and your loving soul will live on each day in all of us. We will continue to sing your songs, tell your jokes, and cook your recipes. And most of all, we will continue to smile, for we know the incredible memories and love that we were blessed to share with you. You were the greatest grandmother I could have ever asked for. You will forever be my greatest friend. I will always love you, Grandma, and I will always be your Danny boy.
Beautiful.
Hola. Hola. Voy a hablar en inglés porque tengo más palabras que tienen sentido. We come together for Theodora on this good winter solstice, a fitting day to gather in remembrance and reverence.
Yeah, we downstairs CPTL for you. We send a message.
Longest night of the year to grieve and release, to then greet the sun when it finally breaks open the sky.
Why now?
They begin with a song written on Dia de los Muertos some time ago. Caminamos con ustedes, angelitos, viven por siempre en amor. Son vistos en la orilla, son oídos en el viento. Se hablan de ustedes con honor. I'm gonna try again because I really want to give it my all.
Yes, you give it a tissue.
Thank you, Daddy.
Well, you can
Caminamos con ustedes, angelitos, viven por siempre en amor. Son vistos en la orilla, son oídos en el viento. Se hablan de ustedes con honor. Ancestros guían con nos, les damos gracias. Ancestros guían con nos, les damos gracias. My grandmother leaves us with loving images in mind. I can only hope to capture a room with half as much grace as she. A radiance imprinted upon you with every moment spent together. It's a smile I find easy to recall because it was always on her face. The feel of her curls and the look of mischief and delight when she asked you for a little something sweet. The simple elegance of her applying her rouge with her lipstick. And that's something my mom does, and that's something I do, and that's something that Soleil is gonna already do, because she already does. Through our stories, the children will hold her in mind, as stern as the clouds in the sky. Thus comes destiny. The succession of earth continues on. seed turned fruit, turned soil. And we are all richer for it. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Grandma. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Gracias a todos. Thank you, everybody. She will be not forgotten. Nunca la vamos a olvidar. Thank you, people in the Zoom. Thank you so much for being here. We all miss you, but I know that everybody is with us in this moment. Thank you so much. Gracias a todos. Muchísimas gracias. Sabemos lo importante que fue ella para muchísima gente y seguiremos aprendiendo de ella cada día a través de las historias de personas a quien ella tocó. Ella tocó con todo su corazón y su alegría. 1.000.000 de gracias y buenas noches a todos. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.